Hello and welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. My name is American Ben. Today we continue our Best Space Navy series. Please make sure to follow the entire series and cast your vote for each faction at the end of each video. And if you feel unable to make a decision and cast a vote, I urge you to remember, there is no place for the weak-willed or hesitant. Only by firm action and resolute faith will mankind survive. No sacrifice is too great, no treachery too small. I fully admit my heresy last video in revealing the flaws of the Imperial Navy, but you can give the Inquisitor the day off. For today we remember that where the Astartes are the Emperor's wrath, and the Guard his hammer, the Imperial Navy is his holy shield. But first, the Imperial Navy requires funding to build those massive ships, so thanks to our friends at Philo for sponsoring today's video. Philo is an app on Earth and in the Imperium of Man that allows you to watch all of your favorite TV shows on your phone, tablet, TV, or powered armor. From the comfort of your choosing, whether it be your living room or the edge of the Eye of Terror. Philo gives you 43 channels for only $16 a month. And if you sign up now using the link in the description, you can get a week free and 30% off your first month by just supplying a phone number. And so if you're tired of those big TV package deals that offer you a whole bunch of heretical channels that you despise and that slander the Emperor, please click that link in the description for a better future and to support Generation Films. And we thank you for doing so, and one more thank you to the folks at Philo. And now on to considering the advantages of the Imperial Navy. The first advantage is cruisers. In the flaws video, we took some time to criticize Imperial Navy battleships for being slow and cumbersome, and for the expensive resources required to build them that makes them a rare sight. Cruisers make up for the shortcomings of the battleship, at least in terms of capabilities. Cruisers, a mainstay in the Imperial Navy fleet, are not as powerful as battleships, but are much faster and still extremely offensively capable. They are more agile than a battleship, but more powerful than an escort, boasting the firepower, speed, and maneuverability for a variety of different missions, from patrols to raids to all-out war. Whoa! Whoa. Sorry. Thought Sly Marbo was behind me for a second. There are a variety of different types and classes of cruisers, but they usually are between 4 and 6 kilometers long and can hold anywhere between 10,000 and 1 million crewmen. Light cruisers favor speed and maneuverability, while heavy cruisers favor defense and firepower. Then there's the more antiquated Grand Cruiser that is a solid mix of a cruiser and a battleship and can be used in a range of ways, from heavy raider, given its speed, to flagship. The next advantage to talk about is what I believe might be the advantage that separates the 40K Imperial Navy from all other space navies: the battle fleets of Segmentum Obscurus. Why is it that a small country like Israel, for instance, is so advanced in terms of its military capabilities? Well, it exists in close proximity to many threats, and this has driven them to focus on developing their military throughout their history. Segmentum Obscurus is the home of the Eye of Terror, a warp storm and warp rift of psychic energy 20,000 light years across that houses the largest concentration of the forces of chaos in real space. The most malevolent and abhorred demons of chaos break free into real space constantly from the Eye of Terror. The Bastion fleets, Cadia, Agrippina, Scaris, and Corona, and even to a degree Battlefleet Gothic, exist in a perpetual state of warfare. They eat nightmares for breakfast, darkness for lunch, and death for dinner. And that's on a good day. This constant state of hell has led these fleets to become the most hardened, the most prepared, the most adept in the Imperium of Man. The Bastion fleets put the shield in Holy Shield. Battlefleet Cadia guards the Cadian Gate, the literal exit of the Eye of Terror. Can you imagine if they had the luck of trading universes with navies from other science fiction franchises? The Galactic Empire would be the equivalent of a luxury vacation for the 40K Imperial Navy after dealing with the abominable and corrupting forces of chaos that spill forth from the warp's rectum to poison the hearts and minds of man, tearing him apart from both the inside out and outside in. Put up against any other naval force, the Obscurus battle fleets would rain down hell on their opposition, not out of an untempered aggression, but out of a supreme vigilance and desensitization to total war and the most depraved forces of evil in any existence. The next advantage to discuss is one we've mentioned before: Forge Worlds. Forge Worlds are entire planets dedicated to the manufacture of machines, weapons, and other technology. Yes, it takes an unreasonable amount of time and resources to construct ships in the 40K universe, and yet they have an abundance of them. Having entire planets run by the Adeptus Mechanicus, the Imperium entity employing scientists, engineers, and technicians, and charged with overseeing the Imperium's technology, allows the Navy to have the requisite vehicles to maintain a presence throughout the entire Milky Way galaxy. I don't want to overly compliment the Adeptus Mechanicus, they hold back the Imperium in many ways, but Forge Worlds are a plus. Forge Worlds are the explanation for how the Imperium is able to have an extraordinary amount of just about everything, including massive ships which are typically constructed in large shipyards orbiting the Forge Worlds. The next advantage is the Fury Interceptor. The Fury, an attack craft used for void combat, is the most common starfighter in the Imperial Navy's employ. Housed by the thousands on cruisers, battleships, and other carriers, the Fury Interceptor is a very versatile ship, and can be used as a fighter, as an interceptor that shoots down enemy torpedoes and bombers, as a scout and reconnaissance ship, or as an escort for the Imperial Navy's Starhawk bombers during their own assaults. Furies can even attack planetary targets within an atmosphere. But being that they range between 40 and 70 meters in length, they are best used in space. The Fury is also well armed, with all of its patterns able to be equipped with high explosive anti-starship missiles and several banks of forwards firing las cannons. Naturally, our next advantage is atmospheric aircraft. After the Horus Heresy, the Imperial Navy was broken up into the Imperial Guard and Imperial Navy. The Navy was given control over all aviation and air support capability, including atmospheric aircraft, the two anchors of which are the Lightning and Thunderbolt. The Thunderbolt is the flying man's aircraft. It's gritty, well-armed and armored, and altogether well-rounded. It has good speed and maneuverability, powerful nose-mounted weapons, and missile loadouts on its wings. The Thunderbolt is primarily an air superiority fighter, seeking out and engaging enemy aircraft. But like many other Navy ships, it's also very versatile, and can be used in multiple roles, including as a high-altitude escort fighter, a low-altitude fighter bomber, or even as a reconnaissance aircraft. The Lightning, on the other hand, is even faster and more agile than the Thunderbolt, but gives up a bit in terms of armor. The Lightning is armed with a single ventral-mounted long-barreled autocannon, 2 wing-mounted las cannons, and 4 wing-mounted Hellstrike missiles. The Lightning is primarily used as a reconnaissance aircraft or an interceptor. The aircraft is able to perform short takeoff and landing, allowing it to be scrambled quickly during an enemy attack. The Lightning is also capable of limited spaceflight in a vacuum and atmospheric re-entry, and thus it can be launched from Imperial starships in orbit. The next advantage is astropaths. I know we previously hated on the Imperial Guard for a lack of communication technology, but most space forces would face difficulties in trying to communicate between the millions of planets and ships encompassed by the Imperium across the entire Milky Way galaxy. At least the Imperium of Man has psychic beings called astropaths, who make such communication possible. Astropaths use their telepathic abilities to carry out superluminal communication and thus link mankind throughout the galaxy. After being honorably selected/kidnapped into the Imperium's employ, they are then dutifully trained/tortured in order to better resist the forces of chaos in a process called soul binding. This allows the astropaths to enter their minds into the warp and transmit communications throughout the galaxy in an instant without being corrupted by the evil forces of immaterium. In terms of the Imperial Navy, warships often have a chief astropath along with an astropath choir on board who are responsible for maintaining adequate long-range communications. That said, they can do more than just long-range communication. They have many other advantages they add to a naval crew as well, such as the ability to control the minds of gunners on enemy ships, or the ability to dull their own crew's primal instincts to make them fearless, earning astropaths the nickname Vodka of the Skies. The next advantage is Navigators. Navigators are human mutants who possess the Navigator gene, giving them the ability to navigate starships through warp space. Navigators have a third eye called a warp eye on their foreheads, which allows them to sense the tides of the warp. As we discussed in the flaws video, naval crews can't detect the spatial movement of warp space once their ship is inside the warp. Thus, without navigators, warp travel would be nearly impossible, and the Imperium would likely fall. Navigators can also live up to 400 Terran years, and as they age, their abilities increase in power. Now, navigators aren't only an advantage because of the warp. All space navies have to deal with some form of warp space or black holes, and navigators could most likely direct ships through any such entity and more. They are basically the 40K version of the smartphone. The next advantage is offensive weapon systems. Imperial Navy starships are very well armed and feature a variety of extraordinarily powerful weapons. First, there's the Disruption macro cannon, which fires a shell of highly charged ionized deuterium atoms which overload and shut down power transfer systems throughout target ships, allowing users to capture enemies alive and ships intact. Then there are lances, which are powerfully directed energy weapons, or basically giant las guns that can destroy even the most well-armed ships. The Navy also employs torpedoes, which are gigantic self-propelled ship-to-ship missiles with enormous destructive power. While certainly somewhat easily evaded, naval captains use torpedoes to get enemy ships to move in specific directions. Lastly, we have Nova cannons, limitlessly powerful weapons mounted below the front of Navy cruisers and battleships. Nova cannons are mostly unrivaled in terms of destructive potential and can create a blast capable of leveling multiple starships. Remember, in 40K it's not the size of the boat that matters, nor the motion of the ocean. It's the size of the gun, and whether or not you can fire it before a chaos demon convinces you to rip your spleen out through your ear. Our next advantage comes on the defensive side of things. Void shields. Void shields are protective barriers of gravitic or electrically charged energy that form an invisible band around naval vessels that can absorb radiation, interstellar dust, particle showers, and sustained weapons fire. They displace ranged attacks by subtly distorting the localized space-time around the point of impact. Void shields are not great protection in close combat, but with the colossal size of Imperial Navy ships, much void combat is done at range, where void shields are most protective. Void shields are unique defense systems that encompass the entire vessel, a great advantage even relative to many other space navies. Our final advantage is universal reverence. It may be true that it is nearly impossible for the Imperial Navy to keep track of all the Imperium's territory and for its leaders to know the peoples and planets of any part of their jurisdiction well enough to dictate intelligent orders down to the lower ranks. But what they can almost always rely on when dealing in different parts of the galaxy is the dedicated support of the rest of mankind. Thanks to the Navigators' connection to the Golden Throne and the Warp, the Ecclesiarchy, the state church of the Imperium, preaches that the Imperial Navy fleet is an extension of the Emperor of Mankind's divine will and is therefore sacred. Thus, on many Imperial planets, the Imperial Navy is considered holy and deserving of the absolute compliance of Imperial subjects. This eases the burden of the Navy of carrying out operations in unfamiliar Imperium territories. Okay, it's time to vote for the Imperial Navy on a scale of 1 to 5. Please click in the top right corner of this video to do so. And don't forget to watch the flaws video and vote at the end of that one as well. And also, the Emperor protects those who subscribe down below. Lastly, stay tuned for all of our videos coming up in this series. For now, I'm American Ben, reminding you to never forget the men and women who have perished fighting aliens throughout the universe. Heroes who died protecting freedom. We fight on for them, my brethren, and for Argentina. Humanity first, and die Navi scum. I'll catch you next time. Generation Films, dismissed.